And the truth for you guys is...
Jesus.
Close to the pipeline quicker. Okay, here's the story. Our pipeline wasn't closing. I got really stressed. I went and spoke to some of the best people I could find, and I thought, this is really good stuff. So I thought I'd share it with you guys today on this event, and I hope you find it useful. So, without further ado, I'm going to get them each to introduce themselves. I'm starting off with the wonderful Marcus Cauchi.
Hello. Thank you. So essentially, I teach people how to make double the money for half the work. I'm inherently lazy, and what I've realized is that we spend most of our time getting in the way of the buyer and their decision to buy. The buyer only comes to us for one reason and one reason only. They don't feel safe, they don't know how, or they don't know what decision to make. And they want to make the right decision, they don't want to make the wrong decision, and they don't want to make the right decision badly. So your job is to be their ally. It's not to sell to them, it's to empower them to make the right decision. So that leads us to the first question, which is, or pair of questions, which is, what is it you sell and what is it your buyers want to buy? So I'll pass the mic on.
I'm Ethan. I'm not going to come with any questions, but so the intro to myself. So previously ran an agency, started it in 2017, sold it in 2021 with 85 people at the end to a digital marketing agency called Brain Labs, and then finished the earn-out in 2023. And yeah, now working as a consultant, helping agencies scale and sell if they'd like to. Our focus was mainly, like, we were very sales focused. We were super at the beginning. We kind of looked at different brands that we could go after. We would have a whiteboard, nice and old school, and think, okay, well, how can we win this brand? So yeah, I'll share some thoughts about that down the line.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Thank you. So before I introduce myself, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. Raise your hand if you would like to experience less stress in your life. Pretty much everyone. Okay. And slightly tricky one. Raise your hand if you are genuinely in love with your business at the moment. Okay, that's a good few show of hands. I like that. So I am a reconnector and co-founder of Reconnect Weekends, where we help founders like yourselves to reconnect to yourself and to experience less stress, more clarity, so that you can make great decisions. For those of you who've lost a bit of the joy and the passion, helping you get that back as well. And being able to have those quality relationships that get you results.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Matt Lander. I'll start with questions. It seems to be a theme. So, who's dealt with procurement people and has had an amazing experience with them? How many have had an amazing... Oh, I say laugh. Okay. 3 hands went up, 4 hands went up. Okay, right. So most of you either haven't met them or haven't had a great experience. I'm an ex-procurement director. I'm an ex-buyer. So I'm the person that you would meet.
But you seem nice.
Oh, no, he isn't.
So I used to work with private equity companies, so portfolio companies within private equity portfolios that our job was to go in and drive, improve the EBITDA. It was to drive quality of the supply base, which to your surprise, it's not just about driving down price, and to drive innovation into our supply chain as well. So I'm an ex-procurement director. What do I do now? I now work with agencies. So I've flipped onto the sell side, which is a lot more fun, I must confess. And I help agencies solve 3 problems. 1, qualifying leads. The biggest thing you can do to improve your win rate and to grow your agency, from a sales perspective, my view, would be qualify better. Mm-hmm. Second thing is writing more winning discussion documents, proposals. I help with that to improve conversion rates, and then negotiating contracts. How do you negotiate with very tough trained buyers? Well, hopefully you talk to someone like me who knows what they're thinking and how they operate.
Thank you. So hopefully you can see my logic here, my twisted market logic. So we've got procurement, who I think might have procured $500 million of agency services over the last 30 years. We've dealt with a few agency pitches. We have a mindset coach who will help us be more in the zone and not stressed when we're trying to It's the pipeline quicker. Got two brilliant sales experts. One is obviously a trainer, my favourite trainers, and someone who's done incredible stuff with Hemsley. I mean, you grew Hemsley from what, 0 to 85 people in 4 years?
Yeah.
And that's really amazing. So yeah, really excited to have you guys in here. But ultimately this morning's about you guys, right? We want to help you grow your agency faster. I'm going to do everything we can in the next hour or so to try and help you and give you actions. I think that's the main thing. Like what success looks like for me in the next hour and a half is all of you guys walk out of this room with some actions that you or your teams can implement that will actually help your business. This isn't just a talking shop, but we don't have time for that at the minute. So, but don't worry, it won't just be me asking questions. I'll pass the floor over to you guys. I also appreciate it's quite a sensitive topic, so if you want to have one-to-ones with these guys afterwards, they'll be hanging around. So I'll just here to help because it's a bit of a shit time at the minute and hopefully this is useful. So I'm going to jump straight in. We're going to start with short-term first, like short-term actions for your pipeline right now, and then we'll talk about long-term. So, panel, what can people do right now with their existing pipeline to close it quicker? Because I've got the mic, I'm going to start with Mike over there. Mike, your procurement task, what can people do right away?
So I'll use a flip chart to make sure that I get the message across. So this is what I would do. In your position, this is what I would do. But first of all, what's the opportunity source? So there's two routes broadly. One is the kind of procurement RFP led, and one is what I would call the kind of budget hold and marketing competitive tender, but it's more of a client brief. Just a quick show of hands, roughly, how many are dealing with lots of problems down this route versus this route? Where's your kind of emphasis in your pipeline? Is it more RFP driven, or is it more kind of like budget holder driven, roughly? Budget holder driven? Procurement driven? Yeah, mainly budget holder driven. That's a great advantage. That's an enormous advantage. So, because this route, typically, very formal, it's governance based, it might be a retender. It's quite hard to break these processes, very hard to close quicker. Why? Because I stop you. I don't want you to close quicker, I want you to run through my process. And I will decide at the end with my stakeholders who we're going to appoint. The only tip I'd offer is you can break the process. I have stopped RFPs and I've gone with one supplier. When we do that, it's mainly because we've got the question wrong. You've told us through discussion that there's a better way of solving the problem, or the problem statement itself is incorrect. So rather than me wasting my time running a 3-month process, I've stopped it, talked to that agency, rescoped what we're going to do, and gone with them.
Mike, how would I go about that? Just pick up the phone and say, look, you got this wrong, mate. I mean,
So a good way of doing it is saying, we're not going to bid for this.
Yeah.
Because I need bidders. Because I need to show my stakeholders I've gone out to market and I've got bids. So you can say to me, I'm not going to bid. And there's a few reasons why. In our experience, what we find, so you don't tell me I'm wrong, because that's bad, because I'll put the phone down. What we find at the moment in the industry is your problem statement that you've got doesn't look like the problem statement that other clients are facing. And let me tell you why. And that there's ways of getting to the outcome that you're looking for and more through a different route. Happy to share with you for half an hour some thoughts on that, but I'm not going to reply to your RFP. Thank you for offering.
That's quite a differentiator as well.
It is.
It's quite nice.
And it's quite, it's very strong, it's quite ballsy. You have to know what you're talking about to be able to do that. So that's kind of one route. This route, who follows Blair Enns? Brilliant. Personally, I think amazing insights about consultative-based selling. Matt Dixon, anyone read The Challenger Sale?
Yeah.
Few hands, few. On this route, my view would be, and probably Marcus is more of an expert on this than me, but my view would be, if it's this route, client briefs, it's a consultative selling process. You should be the expert in the room. So if you're not the expert in the room, you won't close quicker, you'll get ghosted. I'll talk later about Jolt, written by Matt Dixon and Ted McKenna, which is their new book, about why clients, from their 2 million research data points, are ghosting people. And it's not just because they've got other priorities or things that they need to do that are different. There's a very particular reason they found. You need to be the trusted advisor. When I was a consultant in the 90s, we were told to read a book called The Trusted Advisor. And it talks about how do you build trust. And being an ex-engineer, there's an equation. You can build trust, not just through the relationship, but through your credibility, through your reliability. and your management of risk.
And on that, okay, Charlie Green's one of my mentors. He wrote the Trusted Advisor, Trust-Based Selling. The best book on sales you will ever read is Trust-Based Selling. And the premise is that you write business so the terms are so good that both sides would willingly and instantly sign up to the same terms 100 times in a row. Now that's your standard. And the thing is that credibility is the least important part, but it's the thing that you all major on. No one gives a damn about you, your company, your agency, and they do not buy creative. Okay? Don't try and convince people that you are credible. Focus on the intimacy operator in that equation. We'll talk about that more later.
And differentiation. In a marketplace, what I'm seeing across multiple clients, multiple agencies, or multiple agencies, I don't deal with the brands, is it's all looking a bit same. No one, in my experience as a buyer, no buyer ever bought because you've got a great methodology. No one said, what a beautiful way of doing things. I must buy. No one ever says that. It would be ludicrous. You don't think it's ludicrous. And yet methodology is often a quite big part of proposals that I used to read. What I do want is, you know my sector in so much detail, you see far more than me. So your sector expertise is absolutely critical. Your domain expertise, the thing that you do really well, depth of that, and that crosshair of sector and domain, I care a lot about that, because you're de-risking. You're helping me as a procurement person say, this is a lower risk solution. So, is that practical, Marcus?
Yeah.
I think
And,
so.
yeah, to Mike's point, all buyers want to make the right decision, not the wrong decision. So your job is only to remove all perceived risk associated with you, your proposition, and what will happen afterwards. And Mike mentioned the Jolt effect. Does it surprise you that 60% of all the pipeline that you generate for yourself and your clients ends up in closed, lost, no decision? And 52% of that ends up in closed, lost, no decisions, that constipated middle of the pipeline that just sticks there and is in forecast week after week and just drags on, yeah? It ends up there because you or your salesperson misread the moment. The moment of hesitation, when the buyer hesitates, tells you that it's an invitation to intimacy. It's an invitation to listen. What they need is a bloody good listening to. What they don't need is to be sold to. And what normally happens at that point is the seller starts to ratchet up the pain or then go back to the credibility cell and talk about all the features and functions, which no one cares about. It's your ugly kid. Okay, I promise you, no one thinks it's beautiful apart from you, and no one buys the shit you think you sell. No one buys digital marketing. Okay, they don't buy ads, they buy revenue. The job to be done is generating cash. A digital marketing campaign that runs at 3% click-through and 15% conversion has failed 99.9955% of the time to generate the outcome that was intended. What if you focused on that end of the problem with your clients? Do you think they might be more interested and maybe unghost? Because at the moment, almost everything that goes in at the top of the funnel creates a ripple effect. A warm inbound needs around 6 to 11 follow-ups if it doesn't close. On average, reps have to speak to 14 people who's on the list to get one first meeting, and then only 1 out of 8 converts into the next stage. Aren't we looking at the wrong end of the problem? What if we could increase the bottom of the funnel and improve the closability there? You guys are sat on a vast amount, probably 200 to 400% growth that you're walking past and walking over every day. So we can talk about that in some more detail later.
Okay. But I want to pick up on the listening piece. I want to bring Emma in here because actually that's a really good point. Because actually we can have the mindset, but actually I think I'm thinking about this practically. Looking at Rachel over there, we've got a nice pipeline, haven't we, Rachel? How are we going to approach them and give them the damn good listening to, and from what sort of energy, so that we're not annoying them, right? Because Mike, you must have got pissed off when people kept messaging you. Those sort of things. I was just putting my email to the top of your inbox. Those sort of emails. Like, how do we do this? I'll start with Emma first on listening, and Mike, what's it like to be pestered in a way that Is good. Don't worry, you'll be next.
Thank you.
Yeah, please start with
Thanks.
something.
It was interesting to see how many people raised their hands to say that they wanted to feel less stressed. How well do you think we listen to people when we're feeling stressed?
Not well.
Badly. What do you think the perceived, talking about what Marcus was saying, the perceived trust is when you're feeling very stressed and you're thinking about other things?
Very low.
What about decision making? Should I send this email? Should I not send this email? Should I say this? Should I not say this? What's decision making like when we're stressed, busy-minded, anxious, worrying, panicked, lost energy, a bit depressed, or whatever it may be?
Stupid shit.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not minimizing risks there, are we? So let's just have a little look at something over here. So let's say we go into a meeting or a call. Here's you. Here's your prospect. What's going on in your mind usually? Being honest when you're having a call with a prospect. Perhaps if it's one of those days that you're feeling slightly stressed.
I'm going to get my sound bites in.
I'm not going to get my sound bites in.
No, I am going to get
I am going to get my sound bites
Focus on
in.
what I want to say. Like, Fountain's greatest hits. They work every time.
I'm going to get my greatest hits in. Okay, what else?
I need to close.
I need to close.
Please buy, please.
Here's your money.
Give us your money. Money.
Don't quote that.
What else?
Oh God, what happens if they don't?
Oh God, what happens if they don't? Then what?
Yeah,
What
here we go again.
happens if they don't?
How am
To
I
make
going
this
to make
bigger.
payroll?
Here we go again. Here we go again. And the other one about payroll.
How are we going to make payroll this
How are we going to make payroll?
week? If I close them, I can make payroll.
Make payroll. So we've got some sound bites in here. The sound bites, payroll, money. I need to close.
I wonder if they can tell I'm stressed.
I wonder if they can tell I'm stressed. I'm going to look really relaxed, even though I'm thinking about 1,000 other things.
I hope they don't ask about. What's the one thing that you all wish that the prospect would never ask? That thing that they always ask?
Yeah, yeah. I hope they don't ask about. Can they see I'm stressed? Can they see I'm
That looks like a
stressed?
Snoopy cartoon.
Anything else that you know that you're like, oh, I don't really want to say this one, but I'm thinking about my lunch. Or I'm thinking about, I don't know, something.
Next sales call in 10 minutes.
Next sales call in 10 minutes. That might be more fruitful. Next sales call in 10 minutes. What else?
Are they as serious as they seem either on the phone
Yeah.
or really?
I really hope they are.
Never gonna
Yeah.
Who else are they talking to?
Yeah.
Are they serious? Who else are they talking to? How much money do they have?
Is this even a real pitch? Being used for procurement?
Surely not.
How much money?
When can
Okay.
I talk about? By the way, on
When can I talk about my thing? They really need to hear this because once they hear it, it's going to be sold.
quick thing on is it real?
Yeah.
The data from I think I've read 4 research reports, different sources, where the incumbent's bidding, and they've done an okay job. What's your guess on the win rate of the incumbent?
10%?
10. Any more? 10%?
I'd say 80%.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
it's yeah.
So the research says it's 66%,
Oh.
where the incumbent's doing an okay job.
That's okay.
So you've just spent 30 person hours writing documents and doing all sorts of shit when your chance of winning was basically probably about 3 or 5%. Is that a smart thing to do?
Well, to build on that,
Thank you, Mike. That's really useful.
Sorry,
to build on that,
We're hijacking your
if
session,
you
it's not good.
think about it,
It's not a session.
if you think about it, what are the behaviors, what are the activities that you guys are involved in that contribute less per hour than they need to? So I'm going to throw out a metric that none of you are going to be measuring, but it's one that I'd like you to think about, which is Sellar value contributed per hour. If they're on a £1.2 million target, they have a £4,000 a day target, which is £500 an hour. Is the activity you or your people are involved in contributing more than 500 or less than 500 an hour? And think of Gollum versus Genie. Okay, the Gollum sucks the life and joy out of your business and your customers, and the Genie adds value and grants you wishes. So what are the doings that you're doing that add or subtract less than £100 per hour? Or are they adding £1,000 or £10,000 an hour? What about the decisions that you're making? Delegating, designing, developing people. If you think about it, you have all these resources. Are they being applied optimally? And the question that I'd really like to ask is, how do we do an excellent job, hit quota, within 8 hours a day, and be fully joyous and present in every moment?
Which segues nicely on to Emma.
Not like this. Right, so we've got all of this going on, but what do we think is going on in the prospect's mind?
I hope this is right. This is going to be a waste of my time. And think
Why
about
did I
this.
accept this call?
Think about this. If they're a CFO and they're running a $100 million P&L, their time is worth 50K an hour, 865 a minute. Are you showing up and delivering that kind of value?
Did you think like that, Mike?
Yeah.
It's what I'm worth and why you're wasting my
Yeah.
time.
At any one point, I'm running about 12 projects. So I'm running 12 projects which we've got to deliver value from. I have a savings target. I do have a savings target. I get comped on my savings target. I can't just buy cheap. Any fool can buy cheap. Anyone. Anyone can buy cheap. So I've got to buy smart, and I've got to drive EBITDA improvement. And if I don't, I will get fired.
So I was making notes of those as well.
Buy smart, if not, I'll get fired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have
Right?
you ever had anybody who was dialed in on that? Or was that a low
Yeah.
percentage of?
Yeah. We were talking before about of 300 people I've spoken to that are sellers, about 3 tuned into that. 1%.
Which means it's very easy for you to differentiate. 99 out of 100 will be doing exactly what Mike would reject. Don't be one of them. Don't break the Jimmy Carr rule.
And it's actually easier than you might think, because we're talking about listening, which is what most of us aren't doing most of the time. Like, we think we're doing listening, how we were taught what listening is, but we're not doing deep listening. We're essentially listening to our own thoughts. And the thing is, we feel our thinking 100%. So if you're feeling stressed in this moment, what? You're feeling stress, it's coming from all of this. And then, so we've got all of this going on, all of this noise. The prospect has got all of this noise going on about I need to buy smart because if not, I'm going to get fired. How is listening going to take place in that environment? How is there going to be trust? How are we going to be able to help the prospect to make a good decision?
Disconnecting?
Rapport.
Say again.
Disconnecting from the outcome.
Yeah. Rebecca.
So I just want to make a point, I don't know if anyone's had it, but where someone kind of drains your energy when you spend time with them.
Yeah.
I think we've all been ourselves probably drained other people's energy. So I guess it's about, if you could explain something about how we go into the moment with that positive kind of,
Yeah. Okay. So
then more likely to engage
Yeah.
with you.
Because just to add to that, because often you're providing them a service that's solving a problem, and so they're just draining you. They're talking about their problems to you, and that's really quite hard.
So you mean if the prospect is draining you, their energy, you feel like their energy is draining you?
I'm doing the opposite.
Okay.
So say if you're stressed,
Yeah.
the energy you're going into the room with,
Yeah.
you're going in with quite negative energy.
Yes.
Then you're like the energy vampire, they call it.
Yeah, got it. So, and Rose, you're asking about the opposite, right? Yeah, okay. Cool. Okay, so the important thing here is that while it might look like, I'm going to answer Rose's first, while it might look like we're feeling the prospect's energy, we're always 100% feeling our own thinking. We're always feeling what's going on up here. So if we start thinking, oh, this is a vampire, that's adding up there, this is a vampire. If we're going into a meeting with someone that we want to sell to, we need to genuinely care about that person. We can't genuinely care if we're caring more about our own problems and our own needs and thinking that, they're an energy vampire, got to listen to their problems. That's exactly what we need to do. But it feels draining when we've already got so much going on up here.
I have a question for all of you, though. I like the motto, I wouldn't want that done to me, and I don't want to be someone who does it to someone else. Yeah. When we're doing discovery, how often do we end up talking about pain? We're trying to get them to talk about pain? Well, what do you think that does to the buyer's brain?
Associates you with pain.
Yeah. Can you see any reason that that might serve you positively in the long run? So, first thing is stop thinking about how you can take them through their pain, because they will remember the most recent or the most painful thing. There's something called the pratfall effect, which is that you associate and you remember the emotion that you had last when you spoke to that person. If you don't close the loop off elegantly when you do pain discovery, they're going to associate that with you. And Emma talked about, listening. Well, how many of you have taught or learned active listening, and then you weaponize building trust? Yeah? You don't use these as technique. As Emma was saying, you need to love your customers. I mean, platonically, ideally. But you don't let someone you love get hurt. So you can challenge them. But the problem is that if you challenge them just for your selfish intent, they're going to pick up on that. So it starts with a shift. First of all, be buyer, not self-centric. The second thing is shift your focus in prospecting from short-term to medium-term. If you want to build relationships and build trust with people, focus on people who are not ready to buy for at least 6 to 36 months. And if you want to increase your pipeline, go back over close, lost, no decision. Go back and do win-back campaign. On average, win-backs close 21 to 40%.
Just to clarify, win-backs are clients that I've lost.
Have lapsed, and for whatever reason, they just go on somewhere else. You might have been outsold, a change in management. You fucked up the last time. There's no problem with that. Go back, learn, and apologize. And listening is your superpower. If you want to understand how to close, go back to your customers that are blocked and say, look, I think it's my fault. I've failed to listen. Tell me what is actually going on, what you really care about. Stop faffing around trying to convince people, because you need to meet them where they are, not where you wish they were. And they're going to buy for their reasons at their time of choosing. You try and put them under pressure, you'll actually trigger the insular succumbens. That's where disgust and contempt reside. Is that what you're trying to do? Institutionalize your buyers perceiving you with contempt and disgust. Don't do this stuff.
Yeah. No. Well, I guess I agree with most of it. I think there's elements to kind of breaking up kind of what you're selling to a prospect as well. But I think it goes back to the qualification and kind of categorizing the different leads that you have in your pipeline, because a lot of pipelines are filled with shit, really. Like there's ones in there because you want the pipeline to look healthy, but actually it's not closing because a lot of them aren't ready. But I think when you kind of look at categorizing, like there's like RFP, for example, there's client-led briefs, there's some that you've kind of gone to them and said, actually, I think this is a good service that we can offer you. This seems to be a pain point in your sector. Is it something that you're interested in? And that's where we kind of excelled in our agency, was kind of not going, like RFP, we did okay, client briefs, we did better, but the best part that we did was offering services that we thought that might be appealing to them, because that's what we could see within the market is what was happening to them. So for us, for example, we had like Unilever on a whiteboard where we would be like, okay, well, what are the pain points that Unilever are going to have? Like what can we offer them? Because there's no other way of getting into them. So we would come up with these hook products or these services that we'd be able to go to Unilever and say, okay, well, this is unique to the market, and this is a pain point that we know we have. Then from that, we got Philips, Colgate, and a number of different other brands.
Do you mind saying what a hook product is and give an example?
Yeah, so a hook product is ultimately something that allows you to get, I know you don't like this term, a foot in the door. So it's
I'm all in favour of foot in the door, but start earlier.
So we would essentially kind of say, okay, well, this is what we believe your challenge is, and this is something that we're looking to do. But rather than selling it to them, they're co-creating it with you. So you're saying, okay, well, actually, this is something that we've thought this is something that we think is a challenge. Could we kind of have the conversation with you and see how it could work, how we could offer the service, and how would that work best? So we did that. And we're able to kind of get into Unilever, and then ultimately the goal from there is land and expand. So you'd then kind of be working with them initially. You'd build up credibility through the work that you're actually doing, rather than the work that you've said that you've done, and then you'd be able to expand with the different services from there. But kind of going back to the qualification piece as well, when we're looking to close that pipeline quicker. As I said, it's about making sure that you have properly qualified, and anything that is shit either goes to nurture or it goes to close loss, rather than just staying there and hovering around and having salespeople that are kind of pestering the clients. So yeah, that's kind of where we were. That's what we looked at, but we would have quite a streamlined pipeline. We wouldn't make sure that it's not too cluttered.
So short-term actions, I'll bring you to it in a sec, but short-term actions for everyone. So let's sort of recap. So I'm still not sure, I'm looking at Rachel, she's a sales fountain. What am I going to say to them? Like, literally give me, like I'm a 5-year-old. Am I going to write them an email and say, I need to give you a damn good listening to, I'm being facetious, but like, what should we actually do in terms of short-term actions? People who can go, right, what are we going to do with the pipeline? Because I'm hearing the long-term stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's fucking brilliant. And I want to talk about that later, being there, like building trust, getting in with them. 12 months, but people in the room might be going, well, that's great, but I've got 12 months to make payroll.
Ghosted pipeline, dead easy, 9-word email. Have you managed to solve your problem with X yet? Yeah. That's it. Just send that. People who respond, then they're back into the funnel. Those who don't, then put them into the tickler file if they're in your ideal customer profile. Now, how many of you have, within the last 3 months, redefined your ICP? Go back and do that, because odds are you're prospecting to the wrong people.
Thank you.
Okay, 100% chance of that being wrong. Okay, because the market has changed. How many of you are still trying to prepare for the last war? The economy's changed. All the stuff that used to work doesn't anymore. Okay, in February last year, PE changed the rules. So now companies have to make a profit. They've never made a profit before. Interest was 0%. Many of the companies that you're selling to are now saddled with 5% plus 8% interest on a $100 million loan. Where the fuck they find 8 million quid from nowhere? Yeah? So focus on the real job to be done and go and have that conversation with them, because they're not buying digital. Go back and find out what they're trying to accomplish and see if you can rekindle that conversation. That's what you've got to listen for.
9-word email, get a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Not be in my head with lots of noise. Yeah. Be in the room and just listen.
And a great question is, what are you doing to prepare for what's to come?
Right.
So Ethan made a great point about hook products. If you've got relationships with big brands where you're currently not selling, you're not delivering value to them and not generating revenue, put something in between about 20 and 30k. Why? I won't look at it. It's too small. Because there's a threshold. If I've got $1 billion to spend under management, where am I going to focus my time? Small team, indirect purchasing. I'm going to focus on the big stuff. Paul, you've been in this position before. You focus on the things that make the biggest difference, where I can drive the biggest value. So at 20, 30k, you're probably sneaking under the radar on what we would call a letter of intent. So buyers can have a letter of intent within the organisation. That gives you a 12-month contract, gets you in the door. Once you start to get above that, 30, 40, 50, 100k, it triggers my spend cube. Every month I get my spend cube report, and all of a sudden you pop up as a supplier, and I'm like, hang on a minute, no. I never agreed to these people. They're not my PSL. I'm going to go and talk to the stakeholder. I'm going to have a conversation with you. But now you've got a conversation with me of driving value into the organisation with an ROI greater than 6 to 1. I'm not going to kick you out.
If you give an example on the hook products you did, I think the Amazon bubble wrap was called.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think, yeah, poor Zoe, she gets called the bubble wrap lady, but that's not what her job was. But anyway, so we with Amazon, obviously looking at content and advertising, that was the kind of, everyone was looking at growth and how you could grow your sales on Amazon. But the unique part about Amazon is that they charge a hell of a lot for products to actually go into the fulfillment centers, especially if the processes are wrong. So we had a shortage reclaim hook that was essentially reclaiming the shortages, no win, no fee, as cheesy as that sounds. That they were otherwise what they were doing is like 3 or 4% they were just kind of writing off as a cost of working with Amazon. But we were able to reclaim those shortages back for them with no cost initial, unless we actually were able to succeed and get it back. So that was a hook product that we came up with. To kind of get our foot in the door with the likes of Unilever.
It's basically looking at our bigger clients and going, okay, what are the problems that they have
Yeah.
that our competitor agencies that they're working with are
Yeah.
right? Because all the clients we work with already have an agency, so it's actually saying, well, hold on, what's something that... So go on.
In 2008, the marketing manager for HP's education team had her budget slashed from 3 million to 30,000, and her target stayed the same. And so she had to think radically. And what she did was she wrote to any customer that had bought any form of training in the previous 8 years and then went back to them with an offer that was similar but different. 300% increase in sales.
Okay, so short-term stuff. I mean, you guys, so I mean, actions, right? So we've got like emails, book products, listening. What else, guys?
So I think when we're, again, it goes to that qualification piece and understanding the conversations that you've had with prospects as well, because there's likely going to be like those 10K a month retainers that are in there, but actually of what the pain points are that they've kind of talked about, can you cut your offering down to a smaller size that then de-risks it for the buyer, so you can get your foot in the door. So there's a number of different things that they talked about. It's like, actually, we can do all that. That's a great to have, but let's prioritize and understand. Okay, what's the main pain point, and we can do it for a cheap fee. That then gets your foot in the door. That then can be expanded later down the line.
Mike.
I'll tell you something not to do.
Yes.
Don't give me time expiring offers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you do that, that's when you trigger disgust and contempt in the
Correct.
buyer's brain.
Yeah.
And I go, 40% off. Ends on Thursday. Thursday arrives. Hi, Mike. Are you going to take the deal?
Nope.
Nah, I don't think so, thanks. No. Monday comes. I ring you. Jane, hi, how are you? Good, Mike. How are you? I'm really good. Actually, opportunities come up. You know that 40% offer deal that you did? I know it expired. If you can do me 70% off,
Yep.
I'll be interested, because you've anchored, negotiated against yourself, and told me there's more to come. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Paul's nodding sagely as he's been there before, probably.
Understand this. Selling is never about the money. No one buys on price, ever. Doesn't happen. They have an emotional outcome that they want, and the moment you start selling on price, it's over, and you've abdicated control. You've actually focused on the wrong end of the problem, and you send the buyer's brain a signal that you are a risk. And when their brain goes into risk, it perceives the worst case scenario.
So can I ask
Great
a
move.
question to this? How many of you, just be honest, that no one's recording anything that's going to be published, it's all fine. You're in a safe space. You're in a safe space. Correct. How many of you discounted in the last 6 months by more than 10%? For whatever reasons, lots of good reasons, who's discounted by more than 10%?
Who discounted? Who's
Who's
discounted
not
at all?
discounted at all? Why didn't you discount? Why do you believe discounting doesn't work?
It's a sin.
Well, I operate at quite a lower end of the market. I'm not talking about £1 million briefs. So for me, it's just easier to be clear about what the price is and what they're going to get for it. And it's just simpler for my brain.
And do people say that's outrageous? I want 20% off.
No, almost never. But I'm much more on the less the RFP and
Yeah.
more of the marketer buyer sort of person.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, I'm curious, how often did you go for the cheap?
Never.
Well, really?
No, I mean, so I have a savings target. Typically, and in this market again, we've got the research. I know there was a recent report by the WFA. Buyers are looking for between 7% and 20% savings year on year. I.e., I bought something last year and I need it 20% less than the year before. Well, you'd say, well, that's discounting. Well, no, it's not. What I'm thinking about is, you need to drive efficiencies in your business. I need a savings target. I'll give you double. Last year I bought 200k off you. I'll buy 400 off you. If you can drive savings for me that I can get audited by my CFO. Savings are very real. There are 3 types of savings that I deliver. I deliver cost savings, cost avoidance, and value add. The comp is mainly around cost savings. Cost avoidance is you try and put a price increase on me. I just negotiate it away, and that's cost avoidance. I've avoided paying the extra.
Can I make an addition to my comment? So I ran a business for 6 years, and in it, I realised far too late I was pricing too low.
Right.
And the upshot of that is I underestimated my value
Absolutely.
to client, and that in turn made me stressed.
Yeah.
Which in turn made me make bad decisions.
Yeah.
So it created this cycle where I was ended up being perceived to be too cheap, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, what's that about? That doesn't make any sense to me. And the buyer goes, oh, it doesn't smell quite
Yeah.
right. And so that was a big learning for me, which is you need to set your value, set your price, and stick to those guns.
Absolutely.
And find those right persona of people that will.
The value thing. As a buyer, I categorically tell you, when I bought all sorts of stuff, all sorts of services. The number of times that a seller has articulated to me the value and the ROI, and I don't mean scientifically details, I mean directionally correct. These are the value buckets versus how much I'm going to pay you, and that's more than 6 to 1. 1%. Wow. Shocking. Awful.
Would you say that's mainly because they don't understand
Yes.
what value is for you?
Correct. They've never asked me what's value to me, and then they couldn't articulate it back to me. In the discovery call, surely you're saying, well, how much value are you looking to create? And what are those value buckets? And then I'll come back to you with, I filled in the value buckets. I can show you how we can deliver that value over what period of time, and then I can talk about how much we charge for that. It's not always that easy, but a conversation about value, surely. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I've got a question around the budgets because you were saying that you never ever chose the cheapest one.
Yeah.
I've heard so much conflicting advice around the budgeting. And I'm curious, on RFP, you guys indicate a budget. I've heard never go under, never go over. So I'm like, okay, so you have to be bang on. Like, so what is your experience with that? And like, do you, when someone goes over budget or under budget, do you immediately have any alarm bells? I'm
Really
curious.
good question.
Okay.
Very good question. Whose money is it? Seriously, whose money is it? Is it my money? Is it mine? Paul, is it procurement's money?
No.
No, it's not, is it? It's the marketing director's budget. It's their money, but I'm running the governance and the process. If you come at double the budget in the RFP, I'll say to the stakeholder, we're never going to get them to near where we need them to be, knock them out. Be within a range of the budget, yeah? So you have to come within my rule of thumb. If it's plus and minus 30, 40% at the proposal stage, I'm fine with that. Because I know there's some negotiation and value to be created. You've got to come within what we call, in negotiation terms, the zone of possible agreement, the ZOPA. If the ZOPA's too wide, I know I can't get you to a position whereby we're going to get a reasonable commercial deal. So be within a reasonable range. Give me options. Give me what I want, and then give me 2 other options. One's way below, one's way above. 3 option pricing works.
Can I add something too? It's just interesting also to bring Emma in as well and just talk about how you build allies, how you build these relationships with people in a long-term way. It's fruitful. Because a lot of these problems are bypassed when I've known this person for 3 years, right? So I can pick up the phone and go, what's the budget really? Do you know what I mean? So, like, perhaps start with you. Like, okay, those top 3 salespeople, that 300 pitched you. What do they do differently other than be your friend a couple of years before? Maybe I'm being a bit unfair when I say they're your friend.
So these are people that have got to know me over a period of time, before we actually do a deal. One, to Marcus's point, they talk about me and my problems, so they understand me and my problems. Really simple thing. It's 12 months in advance of a deal we're going to do potentially, and this is a new potential supplier. If you say to me, Mike, I know what your problems are in your industry. I know exactly what they are. I'll put the phone down. So you know my problems, but you don't know me. We haven't met. That's quite brave. Whereas if you say, I'll taught a very simple phrase at KPMG in selling. So we did strategic selling back in KPMG days. We'd sell big deals. And the phrase is, if you said to me, Mike, what we find in your industry and parallel industries there are these three types of opportunities and challenges. Just be interested to know which one are any of those three relevant to you? As an early conversation, I'm not good at the scripting how that works, but yeah, I'd be open to saying, yeah, we've got quite a lot of number 2, a bit of number 3, and none of number 1. So that's an easy thing. Secondly is, they genuinely cared, and Marcus mentioned it, they cared about the relationship. They started with, I may never work with you, Mike, but I thought I might be useful to you as an insight, a sounding board. The next RFP you run, if it's not for us, great, but you want some advice, give me a ring. Because I may not have the expertise. Give me a ring and I'll talk you through it. Maybe I can help. You're not selling? No, I'm not selling. Do you want the RFP? No, thanks, it's okay.
These people don't sound very desperate and stressed looking at Emma here.
Exactly. Back to Emma's point, they're not stressed.
Yeah.
And they're in it for the long run.
So I don't feel stressed, Emma, because I'm pretty stressed at the minute.
So you talked before about being in the zone, right? We've all had that experience where we've had an amazing sales call, or we've just been really creative, had lots of ideas, had lots of inspiration. And if you just think about your own at the moment, think of a specific one where you're like, that went really well, I felt like the conversation flowed, or I just felt like I was at my best. Some of you, maybe even you play sport or you play music or you do something like that and you've had that experience of being in flow, being in the zone. Just think about that for a second. And now those of you who are thinking, come on, that's what happens. So we're naturally in the zone all the time. It's not something that we think about it. I'm going to try and be in the zone. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to try and be in that place. As soon as we've got the energy of trying, we're adding stress, pressure, tension, thinking, like we looked at before. We are naturally in the zone. If you think about those examples that came up now, I don't know, maybe if someone could share one, a time when you've been in the zone.
Closing the deal, I suppose.
Closing a deal,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. When the next person you speak to, you seem to sell a lot better. Well, I've always found anyway.
Cool, yeah, because you're like, or your thinking falls away. When you close a deal, you're like, yeah, you've got nothing to think about, nothing to worry about. So you go back into the next call in a really good place. Yeah. And when you close that deal, how were you in that call?
Confident.
Yeah.
Flowing.
Yeah, so you're in a state of flow. Yeah. So it wasn't an effort.
No.
It wasn't something that you had to psych yourself up to do or tell yourself this and that. And this is the mistake that we make, that we're depending on a lot of tools and techniques. I need to meditate, I need to do yoga, I need to remember this. In fact, we ran a Reconnect weekend, which is a retreat that we do in our company, and this weekend for a group of founders. One of the participants at the end said that he'd over-prepared all of his sales pitches his whole life. And after the weekend, he was like, I just need to show up. I've never fully showed up to my sales pitches. I've never fully listened. So we can't actually make ourselves be in flow, but we're very good at taking ourselves out of flow constantly. With all the stress, with all the worry, with all those things that we tell ourselves, with all these dramatic consequences that we have. And now if you look back on your life, you look back on your business, you've always found a way, right? You're all sitting here today, none of you are under a bridge. We've always come up with a solution because we are naturally creative and resourceful and we know what to do. But when we get stressed and busy-minded and tense and anxious and pressured, we get stupid. And if we're not feeling safe, in a second, Matthew, if we're not feeling safe, then the people that are with us are not going to feel safe. And that's go back to then Marcus's point. If someone's not feeling safe, they're not feeling taken care of, they're not going to buy, or they're not going to continue the conversation. Yeah.
I'm just going to make a quick comment on that. So I did an online networking group last month, and it was about presentation training.
Yeah.
And the guy who presented it was essentially saying, before he goes on stage, he looks at pictures of his kids.
Yeah.
And it projects him with a feeling of like love.
Yeah.
So when he goes into that environment, he projects love onto the audience, and it completely alters his mindset into a different sort of environment. And he said that massively helps people pick up on that.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a de-stressing.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
To build on that. Sell with love. Manage your business with love. You do not let someone you love hurt themselves. How many of you genuinely approach the sale with the intent of creating a lifetime partnership with a customer? If you started with that intent, how would you project differently? Because your buyer's brain is programmed to pick up on threat. If you are doing anything to create the conditions where they perceive you as a threat, they'll shut down. That's how you end up with 60% of your paid-for pipeline in close loss no decision. And this is where you need to have a think about your temporal focus. Most of you, or all of you, will be focused on prospects you can close in the next 0 to 6 months, this quarter and next. My thesis is very simple, and it works in the field consistently. And what will happen is in the course of one full sales cycle, you will move to a position of pipeline certainty. Now, the key is to try and engage in the RFP process when everyone else would say, waste of time, they're never going to buy. There are 3 stages of buyer: gathering information, specifying the requirement, and ready to act. Okay? Now, I used to teach people, if they're not ready to act, disqualify them. I've grown up a bit since then, because what I've realized is I want to go where there is no competition. Because what I really want to do is engage in a relationship where every touch is, oops, wrong way. And if you are going to send, say, type, create, or do anything that will touch the customer, and it does not meet all 6 of these, do not do it. Go back and listen. That's the clue. And it really is simple. If it is not timely for the other person, why would they talk to you? You are just an unwelcome interruption. Fair? Anyone disagree? If you are not relevant for that person, you are an unwelcome interruption. If you are not valuable to that person, why on God's earth would they be motivated to take it anywhere? If you do not help them get clarity on their reality, you're just fogging the water, or fogging the mirror, whatever it is, okay? Then, do you empower them to advance towards making the right decision? Are you trying to make them make the decision for your purposes or for their purposes? And then, are you empowering them to see what is possible and possible for them? If you are not doing all 6 of those things, the only thing you can do at that point is go back and listen. Now, why is this relevant? Well, when they first realize they have a problem, they make space for it. What the fuck? Okay? Then they're in passive looking. Passive looking could be years. I just had a client close a deal for 30 units at £6,500 a pop, and he started the sale the day he lost the last one 2 years ago. 180,000, because he nurtured the relationship and he never once tried to sell. In the passive looking phase, if you try and sell to someone, you're out. Fair?
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is speak to a fucking salesperson. Because the only reason I want to talk to a salesperson is to take away my risk of making a wrong decision. Okay? When they move into active looking, I've spent 6 to 36 months cultivating relationships with all the key stakeholders, the users, the technical buyers, the financial buyers, the, what are they called, the evaluators, the decision makers. If I've done my job right, the allocators, the people who actually spend the money and approve it, yeah, I've got them on side. Because I've spent months and months and months while all of you lot are scrabbling around trying to find shit and fill your pipeline with people who are never going to buy. I have a pristine pipeline and I have a 95% close rate. If you had a 95% close rate, how much less prospecting would you need to do? For me, that was a big win. Now, when they are deciding what they're...
On that point, how many of you in the room have written the RFP for the client? Quite a few.
Did you win those RFPs?
Yeah.
Right.
Why? Because their voice and their fingerprints are all over it, and everyone else is competing with the customer.
And you've made my job easier. Clearly, you've got to be careful how it's done, because I've got governance rules. But if you give me all of the information and all the questions and all of the prompts, I'm like, that was easy.
So, what's Mike's reaction when I ask this question? How do you make procurement the hero? Yeah? How do you make finance the hero? What you do is you find fat in the system. You help them find the shit that isn't working and you redeploy that. And you can only do that if you take the time to understand. Because all human beings want to be heard, felt, and understood. Okay, the number one driver of human beings is to look for what feels familiar. So we need to tap into the fact that most people's imaginations are out of focus, so their eyes don't see. So what we've got to do is nurture them through this process, and you can only do that if you take the time, because, and coming back to that trust equation, okay, trust equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, and that's the important one, okay, over self-orientation. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you have on every touch for the last 6 months, a year, 2 years, only been in service to the customer's job to be done, listening, paying attention, understanding all the different moving parts, because a business is a system, and what they have are wicked problems. Any of you familiar with wicked problems? A wicked problem is a really messy, gnarly one where there are lots of interleaved and interconnected moving parts. Whatever you try first doesn't work. Whatever you end up with is an imperfect solution, so you have to keep looking. The stakeholders pop in and out and change their minds. The rules change as you go. Yeah? That familiar? That's the world that Mike lives in. And he is trying to remove risk. And yet you come along and add to their risk because you're trying to sell. When they are deciding, the only thing they want to make is the right decision. Not the wrong decision, not the right decision badly, because it'll bite them in the arse, people will reject it, whatever. Now, on first use, it must match expectations 100%. Do not undersell and over-deliver. You've just lied to me twice. Okay? Deliver exactly what was expected, consistently, and then you create habit. Now, I'll be very quick. Okay, all of this is important because if you want to fill the top of your pipeline and the bot and close more, you need to get the fuck out the way. Yeah. Okay, there is a dynamic at work. In your brain, there are different ego states: the parent, the adult, and the child. The parent basically regulates and controls and tries to keep you safe. The adult is the logic; it's the evidence finder, and the child is where emotion resides. So how do buyers buy? The kid says, Dad, can I have some? Please, please, please. And they either say no or yes. If it goes no, then it goes backwards and forwards until one of them gives up. Yeah, who's got kids? You know the fucking score. Okay. Now, if the parent says yes, they turn to the adult and say, go and find me evidence to justify my emotional decision. Now, this is why this is really important, okay? On your shoulders are your parents, and on their shoulders are their parents, okay? Their parent, adult, child, okay? Your belief system started 75 years before your birth. Now, I was born in 1967 to parents in Malta, so that's about 1486. Yeah, Mediterranean Catholic. Yeah. Okay, so what you end up with is all these inherited beliefs. Now, how many of you have got a shitty money concept? When you talk about money, you kind of feel grubby and dirty, feel a bit uncomfortable asking for yourself, or you don't really see yourself as a salesperson, but then you're having to conflict with making the sale and then being a decent human being. Why not do both? Well, if you remove yourself from the equation, you halve the complexity in every relationship. So the issue is not about you. The moment you make it about you, you become an obstacle and you halve your close rate. Don't do that. Does this make sense?
Completely.
Yeah?
I like how it all actually chimes. When you're telling the story about getting ahead early, it really reminded me of your story. Miles, if you don't mind sharing it, because you guys essentially just reached out cold on LinkedIn. You said 80% of your new business came from LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And you essentially became, for instance, for 36 months Twitter. I'd love to hear a bit more about it.
Yeah. So
Really nice one.
yeah. So it's again, it's and none of it was selling really. Like the ultimately it was building those relationships and making sure that we were having a conversation with them. And as I said, like they had intrigue because they were happy to co-create products and services that we wanted to offer. We were kind of tapping into what the challenges that people were facing, but then also kind of saying to them, okay, well, it would be great if you kind of could advise us in terms of like how we should build this out. And because they were advising, because they essentially built it, they were then happy to buy it at the end of it.
Talk about how you reached out cold and started this conversation.
Yeah, but then also, yes, so there's that element, but we wouldn't do that straight away. So you have to build credibility. So we would be looked as the trusted advisors by posting a lot of things on LinkedIn, so different things about the industry and different niches as well. So as we expanded, we kind of focused in on different individuals within the business to be posting on LinkedIn. So we had Charlie, for example, who came in from Beers, Wines and Spirits in Amazon, and he was very much just focused on beers, wines and spirits. So his whole network was focused on Bacardi and Pernod, and we got those clients because he was talking specifically about those verticals, but also about Amazon. So there were very niche challenges that that they were having, and also he would then do the outreach. So he would be then kind of going out to them rather than it being like, okay, well they've seen a lot about Charlie. Here's Ethan. Ethan's going to come in and kind of ask them some questions. Charlie would build that relationship. So we would kind of grow that out throughout the team. But I think the important thing as well to kind of note is there's going to be clients or there's going to be prospects that you talk to that are never going to buy from you, and that's okay. But I think we're thinking about a client always working in one place. They don't. Like if you've got someone that you're talking to and you're building a relationship with an individual, they're going to move elsewhere. Yeah. So when they're in the right place, that it makes sense for you to go in as an agency. That's when it works out. But you shouldn't, if they're working at a place where actually there's no way that you can go in, you just work as a trusted advisor. And yes, it's working for free, and yes, you're not getting anything transactional from it. But in the long run, that's going to work out because they might go to Pernod or they might go to a Bacardi where we've got better expertise and we're a better place to serve them as a client. So I think it's not being wedded to this client as a company, but client as individuals, because they're not going to be at that company for the rest of their life.
Dennis and then Mike.
So a little bit back on, you both started nodding like crazy when we were talking about qualifying the pipeline. I'm just wondering, if you build an 85-person company, how did you qualify the pipeline? What kind of procedures did you have?
Well, it's
stay on point.
Yeah. So I guess what we would look at is and keep it try and keep it as simple as possible. Like the important thing for us was trying to make sure that we understood what the active pipeline was versus what the nurturing pipeline was, and I think that it's just a clear distinction of that. So the active pipeline would be that they're looking to buy, and there's definitely buying signals of they're actively pursuing the buying process. The nurture would be everything else. So it would be the passive looking. It would be some that actually weren't even passive looking. You would just be building up a relationship with them. So it would be as easy as that. And then from there, with the active, we'd have like a percentage assigned to it because we knew what the conversion rates were of each. But the important thing was being very strict with it. and making sure that it wasn't too cluttered, because then you're just dealing with a lot of noise and prioritizing things that should be prioritized. So it's keeping it as simple as possible and being very strict with it and saying, actually, they're no longer active. Like, we're not getting anything back from them. Let's put them back into a nurture. Let's have a different type of conversation with them and maybe see if we can go about it a different way.
Cool. So you were dealing with happy ears on a weekly basis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and we'd have that, like, so we had offices in Hong Kong, Brazil, Spain, and the UK. So we were working it in different locations as well. So it wasn't just the UK pipeline that we were focusing on. It was all of these other pipelines. Now, obviously, culturally, it's differently, but you'd still maintain the same premise of nurture and active. And everyone will kind of understand the rules and what that looks like, and kind of be able to feed back to that.
One thing I want to say about you guys, which I observed, I'm very guilty, so I spend a lot of time networking with you guys. I love our agency founders. You guys never did that.
No, hated other agencies.
Yeah, you
No, we didn't. No, we did. We just went for a different approach. Like, we came into the agency world through sheer naivety. We didn't even know we were an agency. We were a sales company that had Amazon as a retailer that we were working on. And then Amazon came to us and said, did you know that you're the largest spending marketing agency on our platform? We said, we're not a marketing agency, we're a sales company. Like, what are you doing? We're advertising to grow sales. It's like, you are a marketing agency, you just don't understand it. So we came through sheer naivety. This is why we had the approach of focusing on brands, not necessarily agencies. And I think we kind of felt at that point as well that we had the control at that point. We weren't kind of waiting on referrals, or weren't reliant on anyone else. Like, we had built partnerships out as well, but we were never reliant on it. It was a good to have. It was a nice boost, but like what we were actively looking at was what we were kind of focusing on.
So interesting. And Mike, I know you want to talk, and I think we'll kind of open it up more to questions now. You can see it's been quite organic, shall we say, rather than badly organised. But Mike, that's the voice of my head. Get the gavel. Mike next, and you guys can put your hands up. I know Cauchi's writing lots of stuff, so I'm sure he wants to talk. I've known this guy for 16 years. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have said I found him. So I know this man a lot, but I also can be quite rude to him. We've got, I mean, they want us out by 12:15, and yeah, we've got another 15, 20 minutes. I want everyone to talk as well. So Mike next, open the floor, and then Emma and Cauchi, etc.
Right, so 3 simple things. So I get very nervous. I was a very nervous child. That's still inside me. When I do this, I get nervous. So to your point, how do I de-stress? I think about being in a coffee shop, and it's just us. We're having a chat, and I prepare really well. Preparation in negotiation, for example, a prepared mind always wins the day.
Can I follow up on that? Because you talked earlier about being over-prepared.
Yeah.
I have a very, very tactical question, which is that sometimes I bring slides to the first meeting.
Yeah.
And I've created slides, hello to the customer, and I've gone through and tried to analyze their problems, and then I've sometimes not even used the slides because the conversation just didn't require it.
Why would you use them in the first meeting? I mean, they don't care about you, your company, your credibility. Stop it. No one cares about any of that stuff. It's fucking irrelevant. They care about their outcome, nothing else. Focus on that. By all means, prepare it and make sure you leave it in the car. Let me ask you this. How many of you have come across an original objection in your entire career?
What do you mean by original?
An original one that you've not heard before. Okay, so would it be fair to say that all the objections you are ever going to hear, you can prepare for? Because they're always around 15 to 30 maximum in any industry. Have they ever asked you an original question? Have they ever asked you for an original piece of information? Okay, so would it be fair to say that for 99.9955% of the time, you can prepare for every eventuality? That's how you end up in flow, by not having to think about the next question and not trying to sell to people, because you're calm, you've done everything, you've rehearsed it all, you've lived it before.
I would say preparation lives mainly in review and game tape. and like looking back at what you've done.
I do that as well. How many of you immediately after a sales call do a written post-call debrief and then verbally debrief with another human being to make sure nothing is missed, nothing is overlooked, and you identify any gaps that you would have overlooked because you're in the moment and stuck?
You had me until nothing.
Right. Well, if you're doing that, if you're not doing that, you are leaving money on the table in spades. I mean, vast amounts. You spend a fortune getting these people into the top of the funnel and then you waste them? Seriously?
But I think as well, sorry, yeah, I think it's, and then you, Mike, is that okay? Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think it's also important to value insight in the moment. And if we're full of our preparation and what's happened in previous meetings and previous calls, and this might happen and that might happen, then we're so up in our heads that insight in the moment isn't available to us. And we do best in the moment. If we're in a past call, what could possibly happen, this, that, and the other, and you'll know. You'll know because it's a feeling. If you're starting to feel like, oh, you're going in and you're a bit distracted, you're not really listening, you'll know. And if you are present, then you're more likely to have fresh ideas and fresh thought in the moment, which is going to lead to something even greater than anything you've prepared.
It's more likely to be from what they're talking about as well.
Exactly.
To everyone's point, it's all about them.
All that matters.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question? So obviously you said that you identify the person and then you create like a product tailored to them and you get them to help it.
Yeah.
So when you're reaching out, obviously you were saying about doing it for 12 to 18 months. How do you go about that process without pissing them off? Like, how do you keep in contact with them gradually without them just being like, this guy's just like, you know, waiting for his opportunity? How do you elegantly do it without?
I'll quickly put mine before Marcus. See if I'm quicker than Marcus's drawing. The way you go about it is you have to add value. You have to be able to offer value. You have to be a trusted advisor. There has to be credibility there. So we wouldn't just be connect, first question, can you help building something with us? Like there'd be something in there. Like we'd be building credibility with the post that we were putting out, making sure that it was targeted and making sure that we were going out with the right questions. So we're thinking that this is a challenge that we can see across your vertical. We're looking to build something like that. It'd be great to kind of get your advice, get your feedback on what we're looking to build out here. So it's all very kind of passive. There's no kind of like, we're going to build this something that we're going to sell to you at some point. Like it was very much like a collaborative, like they felt like they were part of that building process. But yeah, it wouldn't just be like a cold, like, okay, like come build something.
Identified a company. Do you figure out who the management team is and do you go to multiple ones or do you focus on going after the one?
Depends what you're building. I think like whose pain point is it the most? Like where so for example, we probably made it harder for ourselves. We had like marketing directors, e-com directors, supply chain. Like we were looking at a number of different individuals, but it'd have to be applicable for that individual. Like e-com managed a whole wide variety. But we'd know, like, if we were looking at one of the bigger clients, that we would need to be very specific and be looking at operations director and supply chain directors. The best thing about them, no one's talking to them. Like, everyone's talking to marketing director, everyone's talking to an e-com director, but no one's talking to supply chain director. So it's so easy for us to get our foot in the door that way.
There's today an average of 12 decision makers in an enterprise sale. How many of you are speaking to 12 points of contact on average within a major account? How many of you are speaking to 6? 3. Right. Well, if you don't have the coverage, is it any wonder that you keep getting ghosted and dropped? You have to be number 1, 2, or 3 on the pile when the allocation committee decides who they're going to give the money to. If you're not, you're just going to be in any other business. Okay, so how do you create the conditions that mean that you align with the job to be done, that everybody in the decision-making committee and the allocation committee and the evaluation committee feels like they are getting something out of it for themselves? Because what you're trying to do is align all these people, because every stakeholder is operating on their own buying rhythm, their own buying journey. And they're not operating in sync. And your digital marketing is only relevant when it touches them, okay? But even then, is it timely? Is it relevant? Is it valuable? Does it give them clarity on their reality? Does it help them understand what's possible for them? Does it help them make a decision? And this is where I'd like to ask Nikki, what are you doing to go back and interview your customers If you want to increase your sales rapidly, the first month is going back and doing customer interviews. Lapsed customers, customers that are stuck in closed lost, customers who are pissed off with you, and customers who are about to churn. What sort of insight can we get if we go and interview those customers over the next 30 days?
Huge. You can see where the fail points are in the business that you didn't know. Most importantly, you hear from the middle ground. So everyone will hear from people who love them because they want to tell you they love you. Everyone will hear from the customers who are super pissed off because you've dropped the ball. You mostly don't hear from the middle. And the middle is what they
Right, so there's loads of money on the table. So that then brings us to this model here, which is really interesting. You all have 10 points that you can spend. And you can only spend 10 points anywhere on those 5 areas of doing, deciding, delegating, designing, or developing. Last week, where did you spend your 10 points?
So Marcus, what's developing?
Developing is developing relationships with customers, interdepartmental cooperation, self-development, important stuff that most people ignore. Okay, so who is spending 60 to 80% of their time in doing? Okay, now, is the doing time adding £1,000 or £10,000 per hour?
Sometimes.
If it's not, I would class that as Gollum, the stuff that sucks your life out and turns your joy into misery. Sucks blood, money, resource, opportunity cost. If you as the agency owner are delivering £1,000 to £10,000 an hour towards the job to be done outcome, that's genie work. It's granting your wishes. Okay? If we think about this, if you're spending 60%, 80% of your time here, okay, is it subtracting from the job to be done, or is it below the threshold that you as the owner should be generating? If you can find a way of passing the decision on to someone else who is closer to it, you stop being a bottleneck. How
did you get to those figures? So how did you get to like 10,000, 1,000?
It's the notional amount that you attribute to the value contributed to the outcome you intend.
So you don't work out like your revenue divided by anything?
You can do, but that's a more sophisticated conversation which we can have separately. But think about this. If you have a £1.2 million target, you need to be delivering £500 per hour towards that target. If the activities you're involved with don't deliver that amount, then you're sucking blood out of the system. Okay? But for someone else, that may be a career move. Now, moving them onto £100 from £10 means a 10x increase in the value. But now it means that you can operate on £1,000 or £10,000 an hour activities. So you've got all of this stuck in your business and you're sat on all of this gold. So do this exercise. Go over your last couple of weeks and look at what you were doing and whether it contributed or took away from the job to be done. And what we have is sales value contributed per hour. That's the metric. How do we focus on maximizing the value contributed per employee hour? And you can do this in any department, by the way. And the key here is your middle management layer. Because if you can get your middle management to start coaching your people, then what happens naturally is you start moving clockwise around the system. And every time you move, you 10x the contribution, so you don't need more resources, and you can have a lot more fun doing the stuff that you love to do. How many of you want to be doing admin? Yeah? Faffing around writing proposals so where you've got a 1 in 6 win rate. Proposals, you should have a 100% win rate. RFPs, you should have a 100% win rate. If you just eliminated all of that noise, all of that clutter, how much time would you have left? You could just give up the suck and focus on the good stuff.
Brilliant. Okay, we have 9 minutes left. It's really valuable. So I'm just trying to make sure people get stuff in. I know Mike wants to say things, and then people want to talk, ask a question, hands up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Mike, 1, 2, 3, and we'll be exhausting our actions.
So, very quick things. We said before, the RFP route or client brief route, 90% of you will like down the client brief route. Just be aware, in bigger brands, even on the client brief route, where they're giving you a brief, it's competitive, and it's say 50 to 100,000, I'm in the background. Just be careful. Yeah? Because they can't just spend £100,000 without talking to me. So just bear that in mind. Second thing is a very simple thing about matrices. So, in procurement world, there's something called the Kraljic matrix. Marcus, you know this. Why on earth is the Kraljic matrix relevant to your agencies? You're thinking, God, another 2x2 matrix. Do we need more of them in our lives? Well, this one may be. So, simple axes. Profit impact on the buyer. What's the profit impact of this decision on the buyer? Second axis, remember I'm a procurement person, is supply risk or scarcity. How much risk is there in appointing a supplier to do this, and how scarce is that supply base? You want to be in a niche which is you have very high profit impact, you create value. You are very scarce, you are differentiated. You're not unique, but you're very, very scarce. You're a strategic item. How do you think I behave with a strategic item supplier partner? I will collaborate with you because you're scarce and there's a lot of money on the table.
And you're valuable.
You're really valuable. You're really valuable. How do you think I behave if there's loads of you around and it doesn't make a big profit impact? Well, you're a commodity. Why would you bid for commodity work? Why would you bother? So a tactical thing to do, go back, look at your pipeline, look at your business development activity, and just check 80% of your work is up here, and then 20% down here. If it's the opposite, you've got a problem.
So to get to the upper right quadrant,
yeah,
you're thinking about niching, finding that fat, getting narrow on your particular problem.
Absolutely.
And becoming that 1% of sales problem.
And look at the impact on my business.
Yeah.
Big impact on my business, big nasty problem to solve. Be the niche supplier who can solve that problem with evidence. Don't try and convince me I'm the first one, it'll be fine. You need evidence to say you've done it before.
Mike, you're not the guy I approach with a hook product and say, like, we're building something, and we're thinking,
probably not.
All right, that's it.
No, I wouldn't touch mine. I'd be too scared.
Not much any thought, don't worry. Sorry about that.
So should we go questions quickly? So we had someone over there.
Yeah, so my question was, how, just more advice, I guess, or some practical thoughts for the current world we're living in, where a lot of stuff has flipped to video calls, and I think a lot of our pipeline that would have used to have been face-to-face meetings, getting in the room with people, actually having a conversation, where you don't have slides, like this gentleman's question around, I've got slides that I can bring up on the screen now, can you see my screen? All of that stupid stuff we do. Like, I think our pipeline is held up by the fact that we're not in the room with people anymore. We used to do a lot of work with Unilever.
That's an excuse.
Well,
sorry, there are loads of people in your industry today absolutely creaming the money in. It's you. Always look in the mirror.
But he's
really charming.
I can lie to you.
It makes you feel safe.
I can lie to you and look up your ass, or I can tell you the truth. That's not true. What's the real question you should be asking?
Well, I'd love to know what it should be.
What matters most to your customer?
Why aren't we in the top right of that?
What matters most to your customer? Do you know that? If you can't answer that question, go back to the drawing board and find out. Because that's why they're buying. They're not buying to buy your stuff. They're buying because what matters most to them.
But I guess what I feel is that it's a bit like Emma's point around kind of like the fatigue in a meeting. I feel like those meetings just don't seem to go as well.
So I guess a question would be like, what's different? I guess when you used to go to a meeting, you'd have that time in between of going there and then obviously coming back. So you lose that time. And what tends to happen with calendars is you have back-to-back. So you have a pitch, or you'll be going into a pitch just coming off the back of another call. So I think it's about kind of breaking up that day because it's kind of, it's going back to why you're losing it. Because as you said, I don't think I wouldn't be but I don't think it's necessarily because they're in the room, because no one's in the room. But I think there's that element of preparation that's missing that you'd usually have with a travel to the client, that maybe you need to do virtually. So you set aside an hour before to make sure you're properly prepared, mentally prepared, and then you have the debrief after. So you're making sure that you're doing the follow-ups, you've got kind of all the notes that you need, you hit on the points that they have. To be honest, I found it easier as well, because you've got note takers in the background that you're picking out bits that you might have missed throughout the meeting as well. So I'd say that might be a practical way of tackling that challenge, because actually the problem isn't necessarily that you're not in the room. It might be other elements that you haven't necessarily got the right preparation in place that you previously had.
Building on from what both Marcus and Ethan have said, it's looking at where is that fatigue coming from. So we're going to find all sorts of different reasons. It's the current situation, the economy, it's because we're online, it's because I brought my slides, it's because of this, it's because of that. In Marcus's very elegant way, it's an excuse. It is in our, we make those excuses in our minds, and it's a moment for you to look inside and say, okay, what's going on here? And to Ethan's point, yeah, maybe you haven't had a break between meetings for your past 3 meetings. Not a good idea. We are going to get fatigued. And also, if we've got a lot of that thinking going on that I drew up before, we're also going to feel fatigued. We're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. So I just wanted to say, I think sometimes we can make this very serious. It's, oh God, I've got to get it right. I'm doing it wrong. I'm hearing all these things today. I'm not doing it right. And if we can look at it more like a game and sort of play around with different ways of doing things, different ways of being, slow down a little bit internally, and just notice when you're starting to get sped up and tell yourself that type of excuses, those type of excuses, then that's a good way to just come back into the room, whether that be virtual or real, and know what needs to be said and what needs to be done. If you need to have a break, you need to have a break. If you need to be sort of say out loud, hey, I'm feeling a little bit slower in energy today, going back to the honesty point as well, being very open with the person that you're talking to.
Guys, we're at time, so what I'm going to suggest is to question people, grab these guys straight afterwards. But as we wrap up, 2 things. I want to say thank you to Stokely for filming today, during the Grandad. Thank you to Michael Murdoch for helping promote this. It wasn't the best agency events, better than these ones, but trying my best, Michael, so thank you for doing this. And then you guys, if you could just, look, there's lots of noise, right? Lots of ideas, lots of great stuff. But if you could just put it down to first principles, fundamentals, one thing each, everyone should take away with them, what would it be? One thing.
Remove risk. Risk is uncertainty times vulnerability equals perceived risk. The brain's default setting to perceived risk is the worst case scenario. Do everything you possibly can to eliminate all forms of perceived risk associated with you, your proposition, your intent, or what will happen after they buy.
I think being honest with the pipeline is kind of the main point. Like, make sure that you are scrutinising it constantly, make sure that you're honest with it, and don't kind of have that inflated pipeline that currently exists.
Have fun, play the game, listen to yourself, and listen above all to the people that you're talking to, and enjoy the process of doing that. And if you find yourself getting up in your head, notice that that's happening, and that will bring you back.
Right. Be a strategic supplier, not a commodity, and qualify really, really hard.
Brilliant.
Mark's going for a second go. Is that what we're doing?
Okay, so again, something that I'm finding really helpful is to drive people to the
He's losing his speaker fee right now.
.org.
Okay, that's fair, actually.
Okay, now, if you go there, it's a code of conduct. I send this before to my prospects and I say, it's not legally binding, this is how I like to behave, and I want you to hold my feet to the fire and hold me to account to this standard. Now, what's really interesting is when you send that, it sets the bar and everyone else is compared with you. You're telling them, I'm going to be biocentric, I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to give you what you want. Now, if it resonates with you, there's an entire movement of sellers who believe that the customer deserves better. They deserve better salespeople. They deserve salespeople who are their allies. And that's what this is all about. If you're the buyer's ally, they will seek you out. Because in this market, They want to de-risk. And if you present a risk to them, they've got no reason to engage.
Brilliant. Guys, quick show of hands. Who's actually got some actions for this? Brilliant. If you haven't, go chat to these guys, but most people have, so thank you so much. It's been useful. Good.